Hey guys, how's it going? So, one topic that I want to quickly touch on is meal building. So, one of the most common questions I get all the time from people is simply, what should I make for lunches, for dinners, for breakfast, whatever it may be to help me get to my goals? Now, obviously, I can think of a bunch of things off the top of my head, but without knowing that person's preferences, their access to things, their budget, their lifestyle, all those different demands that come into play, it's hard to just rattle things off and tell people. So even when I'm working with a client and I have a list of those different factors that come into play, I still don't like to just hand them a meal plan because it doesn't it still doesn't let them fend for themselves a bit and really put their personal touch on stuff. And the chances of me putting together a plan that is going to be realistic for someone or check all their boxes just with knowing that info are very slim. So today I want to walk you through some simple tips to kind of get you started because I think one of the most confusing parts about nutrition today is just the constant feed we're getting of different meals and different snacks and different ways of cooking and different diets that prescribe different preferences for meals and things that you should do if you want to attain a certain goal. And it's just the whole nutrition space is confusing enough as is. The whole cooking meals part shouldn't be. And although you definitely obviously want to get some variety in your life and not eat the same exact thing every single time, the majority of people are going to find far, far more success if they just eat more of the same meals. Now, especially think about if you're tracking, like let's say you're tracking macros, right? Let's say you're doing it yourself or working with a coach and you're trying to follow some guidelines to hit some targets based on your goal. If you're constantly eating different things all of the time, it's going to be very hard to track, or at least it's just going to be more of a pain to do it day in, day out. If you're eating more of the same things, you're going to build that intuition. We always hear about intuitive eating. Well, we get that from tracking. And if we track and cook and log more of the same foods and drinks, it's going to be much simpler to build that intuition and get into a rhythm. So if you're tracking, you want to make it easy on yourself, come up with some simple meals. And the key part here is, I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, I don't want to eat the same thing. Isn't that bad for you too? Well, the key is to just make nutrient dense meals. Think about, I like to tell people to start with protein and veggies. So I'm going to show this screen right here. Actually, I'm going to move over to this page here. So this is a little illustration of something that I use personally with clients. So this is just on one of their very first PDFs that they get from me with their initial nutrition plan. And it's just giving a very basic outline of different options for proteins. See, we got regular lean proteins here, some fattier proteins, veggies, fats, starchy carbs. Obviously not a list of every single thing, but some very common options. Now, what I like to have people do is just take a look at these. I have a much more extended list of choices that I provide people with, but just starting here, I like them to take a look at these options and simply just jot down ideas of what their favorite things are for each. So I'll use myself for example. So here, some of my favorite protein options are definitely chicken breast, eggs slash egg whites. Aside from that, Greek yogurt, and then definitely ground beef, and I'll just put it in the same box. Oops, ground turkey. So those every single day is very rare, unless I'm away somewhere or something weird's happening. I'm having at least one of these things every single day, most likely at least 2 to 3. Now, if we go over to the veggies section, so I know me personally, some of my favorite veggies are definitely mushrooms, broccoli, asparagus, and let's see, spinach. It's definitely a favorite one. Then we come over to starches. So I like to have people begin with proteins and veggies. Those are two of the most nutrient dense foods that we take in every day, and just simply two of the easiest foods, regardless of whether you're looking to burn fat or put on muscle. Those two categories are going to be very important because they're very satiating, meaning they make you very full, and they're very nutrient dense. So regardless of your goals, they're going to provide the nutrition that you're looking for, help with hunger, and help fuel your body. And then we come over to starches and fruit, which are the often demonized parts of nutrition when they shouldn't be. And, in every meal, I want people to have some sort of a protein, some sort of a veggie. Um, you know, get a protein choice in, get something green in, or some other kind of non-starchy veggie. And then letting people know, hey, it's fine if you have some starches or you add some fruit. With these things, different starches and fruit have different amount of calories, but provide a ton of vitamins and minerals. And these just depend on preference, whether it's white rice, brown rice, whether it's bananas, blueberries. It really doesn't matter, because the most foundational principle of nutrition is always going to be calories in, calories out. So as long as you keep these portions in check, there's nothing wrong with having rice, especially if you're on a plan to lose weight and burn fat. There's nothing wrong with having rice or having oats or having potatoes, whatever it may be. You just have to keep portions in check. That's all. So as far as starches and fruit go, by far, some of my favorites are jasmine rice. I like all kinds of rice. I just prefer the taste of jasmine rice and don't get sick of it. So that's definitely a favorite of mine. Another one is sweet or white potatoes, for sure. Another staple that I have nearly every single day is oats. And then, honestly, those are three of the biggest ones. One that we will throw in frequently too is quinoa. It's definitely not an everyday thing, but something to mix it up when you want to switch it up from rice or potatoes. Quinoa is a good option, and trust me, we eat a bunch of different things. Like once in a while, we'll throw in something like pasta, or obviously for proteins, we'll throw in something like salmon, or even once in a while, we might throw in some sort of like a chicken sausage or whatever it may be. And then obviously for veggies, we eat a lot of peppers and whatnot too. I just want to give you guys some examples here. And then as far as fruit go, I won't list a ton of things, but I know for me personally, I love bananas. I eat blueberries every single day. And, typically a couple servings of fruit a day, perfectly fine, regardless of what they are. Fruits don't make you fat. Carbs don't make you fat. Just got to control quantities. That's all. So then I'm going to go down here. And so I already listed some things out. So the reason I have people start here and not list fats as a main category is just because the majority of your proteins, regardless of what you're doing, you typically want to just focus on lean proteins to make life easier. So you're getting more of a higher protein content with less fat added in. But knowing that, I know for us, for example, like a lot of the ground beef and ground turkey we get is either going to be 96% lean or 93% lean. But even with that, you're still getting some fats in there. Based on how many eggs versus egg whites I use, I get fats in there. Chicken provide a very minimal amount. But typically with the meats and other stuff you're eating, there's going to be some trace amounts of fats in there, or larger amounts of fats based on the proteins you're choosing. Down here you can see there's some additional fats listed. So a lot of times we'll throw something like Parmesan cheese or some pesto or avocado. and other options that are more not really the centerpieces of the meal, but almost more additives to it. So I like to get most of my fats along with my proteins and then just add small amounts of these additional options down bottom. Next, you can see condiments. Honestly, the main one I use daily is just some form of hot sauce. Either hot sauce like a Frank's Red Hot or sriracha. They're 0 calorie. I love spicy stuff, so it's super simple to me. But then I threw in a few other ones that once in a while we'll add in, like a salsa, teriyaki sauce, or a low sugar barbecue sauce, or ketchup. There's tons of other options, but it's good to add in some typical condiments that you might like to use. And same goes for spices. So for us, simply, we usually just season stuff with either some kind of a Cajun or taco type seasoning, and then just salt and pepper. Nothing too exciting, but that's what we enjoy. I love the flavor of just salt and pepper, so I have no problems just having those as my main spices. But here you can just kind of list out what you typically like to add to these options above. And like I said, I just threw down a handful up here. If I were to work with someone, I'd recommend they throw down not too many. Like I said, I want to keep it simple, but if you have, additional veggies you like, feel free to throw them in, or some fruits. That's completely fine. And the very last part here, I just threw in some kind of staple meals that we have a lot. So, for me, I don't really look at things as morning foods or lunch foods or dinner foods. They all really kind of blend together. We either will try to meal prep things, or at a minimum just cook things in bulk so we can piece them together the next day. So for example, for me, a big one is this first one here: eggs with chicken and rice. That's something that I eat a lot. I love it. It allows me to check off a lot of boxes with protein and getting carbs in right away. If I'm in a phase where I'm looking to put on weight, then getting some carbs in early in the day makes that goal, my target, which is going to be a little higher, a lot more attainable. And then for me, usually at a bare minimum, I'm going to be throwing some spinach in there. But I mean, anything from tomatoes to peppers, whatever we have, is great in there. And then down here you can just see some other options that we typically go with here at our house, like a chicken stir fry. We have a ground turkey rice mix, beef and broccoli, pesto chicken, and quinoa. So that's where we'll definitely sneak that quinoa in there. And then if you just take a look here, you can see how I kind of take those items above and throw them in. So by far, my favorite is jasmine rice. I love jasmine rice, or either sweet potatoes or white potatoes, either one. And then down here you can also see just the variety of veggies. So some of them were staples that we have up there, but obviously there's other veggies that we like that go with these meals. And I didn't throw in any spices or toppings, but as far as condiments and that go, you can list them up top here and just think of what goes well with what down here. So like, for the stir fry or the beef and broccoli, we might go with either, no sauce or just like a teriyaki. Now obviously pesto chicken's in here. And then honestly, for me, if something's not already pre-seasoned, pre-marinated, or even if it is, there's a good chance I'm going to put some sort of a sriracha or hot sauce on there. So I just know that in my head, and I'm not going to list it out here. But again, these are just some very simple tips to get started. It's typically, just in general, if you write stuff down, if you write it out, there's a higher chance that you're going to follow through and do it. So it seems kind of simple and elementary, but just getting things on paper and getting some ideas out, and just using something like this handout where you have options to choose from. Obviously you can Google, what are different protein sources, what are different fat sources, so on and so forth. And just looking at a long list of stuff, you can use that and then just create your own kind of template to pull from. So, like I said, think about what kind of proteins and veggies go well together. Do you want to pair it with a starch or a fruit? And just think about what meals make sense for you. And like I said, these meals down here are very simple. And the best part about them is they're easy to make in bulk. They're easy to measure and track, and they're good leftover for multiple days. These are 5 staples that are everyday occurrences in our house. It's nothing fancy or complicated. They're not going to be the most exciting pictures to post on Facebook or Instagram or anywhere. They're not going to be the super fancy, trendy looking photos that you see all the time on those sites, but they're effective. They're full of protein. They're full of veggies, nutrients. They're filling. And the last step you could do is really, if you want to dive in, or if you're working with a coach, this is where it's super useful. If someone does this for me, then I can look at this. We can think of what portions are appropriate for them, so then they can have a ballpark idea of what they need for portions. So like for this first one here, I'll typically do something like 1 egg with a couple egg whites, and then it'll probably be around like 75 to 100 grams of chicken breast, about 150 grams of rice, and then maybe like 50 grams of spinach in there. But that depends on the day, depends on when in the day I'm eating it, how much food I need at that time, how much room I'm trying to make. But just getting started here makes a big difference. Get it on paper, then you can look at portions and all the other stuff down the road. But just get stuff on paper, stuff that's, again, enjoyable. Number one, you got to like it. It's easy to prepare and cook. It'll last a while. Rinse and repeat. It's as simple as that. Just do those steps and keep it simple. That's all you need to do, is just keep it simple and enjoy.